Hey, what up everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you today. This is my first time I've been able to make a video hyping up this year's Survivor Series. And what I've been doing since the WWE Network came into play is basically just going into the archives and checking out the old shows and checking these out. Honestly, Survivor Series 1987, I thought it had a good place in my heart as, you know, a great show where you could go back and watch all of your favorite superstars from back in the 80s. This card is packed head to toe. When you look at it, it's got 4 real long matches, but you honestly get to see just about any superstar from this era. So many legends, so many Hall of Famers. It is a good one. Definitely, honestly, in my heart, this is going to definitely be a hard show to review. Just because each match, Survivor Series rules, basically it's 5-on-5. There's 9 pinfalls in a lot of these matches, and they're hard to remember them all. It's sort of like, having to, review a Royal Rumble. I don't have a lot of Royal Rumble reviews unless they're the ones that were live. That night on pay-per-view, I watched them, and then I came on here and talked about, what I thought was going to be going down. It's hard to remember how all 30 guys got eliminated from a match. You just basically sort of remember the high spots of the match and the points that you sort of remember to get along the way. Survivor Series 1987. 3 good matches, 1 horrible match that never ended. But like I said, you get to see a lot of the people. A little bit of a backstory. Basically, WWE was coming hot off of WrestleMania 3. Everybody can remember 93,000 fans packed into the Pontiac Silverdome up there in Detroit, seeing Hulk Hogan going up against Andre the Giant in the main event. And basically, Vince McMahon saw, hey, we did this many people filling up the Pontiac Silverdome. We sold this pay-per-view all around the world. Everybody wanted to see this. Let's make another pay-per-view. So basically, coming off of WrestleMania 3, they said November 26th, otherwise known as Thanksgiving night, we're going to put a show on pay-per-view. And it's just going to be a mega show that everybody's going to want to see. Once they're done sitting down and eating their Thanksgiving dinner, they're going to want to huddle around the television and watch TV. That's what they like you to think. But honestly, I think WWE, or WWF at the time, came up with this pay-per-view as a way to fight off the NWA, otherwise known as a lot of people, WCW at the time, was launching Starrcade, their big pay-per-view, which is going to be on television. Basically, you would think that this is going to be a wrestling fan's dream to sit down and watch the NWA pay-per-view, which was a little bit earlier in the day, and a WWF pay-per-view at the same time. So if you could get your family to jump in on this, which I think would honestly be a very hard thing. I could see myself hosting a Thanksgiving, and if I was in charge of it, telling everybody, hey, do what you gotta do, but at 5 o'clock, I'm turning on wrestling. I think a lot of my family would be hitting the door and leaving. I don't know. Let me know in the comment box down below. Would wrestling fly at your family's Thanksgiving? I'm sure there's a lot of families out there that watch these videos that wouldn't mind sitting down and watching wrestling, but I think a lot of people's families are like mine that would sort of roll their eyes and ask why we're not watching the last football game. But even more of a backstory on this, basically cable providers, they sort of had their mouth watering on this, having an NWA pay-per-view and a WWF pay-per-view. Their dream was to sit down, and their dream was to have a combination pack. You can buy one show for this much, you can buy this show for this so much, or you can buy both shows for this much money. That's when Vince McMahon wagged his finger, and he said, no, 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 that's not the way we're going to do this. Basically, you're going to show my show, or if you don't, you won't get our show and you won't get WrestleMania 4. I need to be exclusive on your pay-per-view channel, or that's going to be it. Basically, you're not going to show the NWA. You're just going to show Survivor Series. And if you do show the NWA, you're not going to get Survivor Series, which is going to be a big show, and we're not going to give you WrestleMania 4. Basically everybody bid on this, seeing that basically Hulk Hogan was one of the biggest wrestling stars that was out there, was going to be featured on this show. A lot of people were really into WWF at the time, which was the #1 company, NWA looking like they're number 2. Very few companies bid on this. Basically, if you were in the southern part of the United States, your Carolinas, your Georgias, more likely your Alabamas, basically those people, they went with the NWA because that was NWA country, Horseman country. Woo! basically, and just about everybody else, except for the cable provider that Dave Meltzer had. For some reason, they went and went with the NWA show. That way, Dave always talks about it on the Wrestling Observer podcast, how he was able to catch both shows by leaving his house with him and his buddies, driving cross town to go into somebody else's house, and watching the Survivor Series main event, which, honestly, when he tells the story, is very funny, because they ended up going to the house they weren't supposed to go to, and just walked in. And because he knew one person that was in the house, they just stayed. It wasn't the house that he was invited in. But he talks about that story about every WrestleMania year. So if you haven't heard it yet, sign up for the podcast and get this. Basically, the first match of the night, star-studded, like I've been saying. You get a lot of guys in there. The way they do Survivor Series back in the day, it's not like they've done Survivor Series in the past. This year, since Survivor Series is actually having a Survivor Series match, and it's going to be the main event, I think as of right now, they're going to try and tie everything in together, basically with guys that are being held down by the authority and guys that are involved with the authority and putting them together. That's the way it used to be back in the day. When they've done these now, it's sort of like, grab those 5 guys and grab those 5 other guys and put them together because they ain't got nothing else to do. We need to fill this up. It's called the Survivor Series. We got to have a Survivor Series match. That's the way it works these days. But they would make every team matter. They would make every team and their storylines coexist, putting baby faces together, going against heels that they were either involved in a storyline with now, or was like their last storyline, or maybe one of their biggest rivalries of all time. So in this one, you got on the babyface side, you got Randy Savage, Jake the Snake Roberts, Ricky Steamboat, Brutus Beefcake, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Going up against Honky Tonk Man, Hercules, Danny Davis, Ron Bass, and Harley Race. This match went about 25 minutes. You get to see Jim Duggan and Harley Race basically getting each other counted out. Ron Bass was the next one to fall to Brutus Beefcake. Brutus Beefcake took the shake, rattle, and roll from the Honky Tonk Man. Danny Davis, one of the worst wrestlers of all time, he stuck around before taking a DDT from Jake the Snake Roberts. And then the last man to fall was Hercules after a Randy Savage elbow off the top, and then basically seeing Honky Tonk Man standing out there, having to face Randy Savage, Jake the Snake Roberts, and Ricky Steamboat all at the one time. Basically, this guy was a smart guy, and he took the high road. He got counted out. He didn't get the victory, but he didn't get his ass kicked, leaving your survivors of Randy Savage, Jake Roberts, and Ricky Steamboat. Next match tonight, I'm not even going to tell you what happened, because basically I couldn't even sit through this match. I got through the whole thing, but honestly, after like maybe 5 minutes, I wasn't paying attention at all. They gave these girls a whole bunch of time, about a 20-minute match. They got in there. It's not like the Survivor Series of 2013 with the Divas versus the Total Divas crew, and where all of them just got eliminated 1-1-1-1 and knocked the whole thing out in minutes. You had Fabulous Moolah, Rockin' Robin, Velvet McIntyre, and the Jumping Bomb Angels going up against Sensational Sherry, the Glamour Girls, Donna Somebody, and Dawn Marie. Not the Dawn Marie of ECW, though. I was hoping for it. But the Ultimate Survivors were the Jumping Bomb Angels. My surprise it wasn't Rockin' Robin or Sensational Sherry. Those are the ones I was thinking was going to take the whole thing. Also, Rockin' Robin. I remember her name from back in the past, but it wasn't one of them to get the win. Next one was a true awesome match. 20-man Tag Team Survivor Series Battle Royal. Basically, whenever I make a video talking about the tag team division of today, I always think about these matches that they would do. 20-men Survivor Series elimination match. That means 10 teams were involved in this. 5 babyface tag teams going up against 5 heel tag teams. When was the last time we had more than 5 tag teams in the whole WWE? I mean, right now, you've got the Usos, you've got the Dust Brothers, you got the Matadors, and that's it. In the past, we had the Real Americans, we had Rybaxel. I was really surprised that they were able to put together that 4-man tag team elimination match as the pre-show of the WrestleMania this year. WWE, WWF has taken a real big step in backwards since maybe even 2000 was about the last time I can really think, they were really kicking with the tag team division. When you had the Outlaws, the Dudleys, the Hardys, Edge and Christian, lots of teams. When you watch a lot of, pay-per-views from 98, 99, 2000, 2001. You get to see sometimes 2, maybe even 3 matches, and they all had, they all had, sort of a mystique about them that these teams were good. And they all had, history. The storylines made sense from being either on Raw or on SmackDown. It's nothing like it was today. You get to see Strike Force, the Young Stallions, Fabulous Rougeaus, the Killer Bees, and the British Bulldogs teaming up against the Hart Foundation, the Islanders, Demolition, the Bolsheviks, Dream Team, which is Greg the Hammer Valentine and Dino Bravo, and a whole stream of managers on the outside. 4 different managers to manage this one match. Basically, the rules were if your tag team partner was eliminated, you were eliminated also. So it wasn't like you were having to watch, 15 falls or however many falls there was going to be in this match. Basically, the Russians get knocked out by Tito Santana early. The Rougeaus are knocked out by Axe of Demolition. Basically, Demolition then gets disqualified for hitting the referee after that. I think they were protecting them because they were a pretty big deal at the time, not wanting them to take the fall. You get to see the Tito Santana. He gets knocked out by the Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Dynamite Kid gets taken out by Haku. Pretty big story about this right now is that if you go back in history, you can see this was the last night that the British Bulldogs worked for basically the WWF. They had quit over, basically Dynamite Kid had been sort of hassling the Rougeaus in the back. It was sort of basically hazing them to the point where one of the Rougeaus rolled up a roll of quarters, punched Dynamite Kid to sort of get revenge on him. Blood went everywhere. And basically, Vince told them they weren't going to be able to get revenge. They didn't want this sort of stuff in the WWF at the time. So basically, they sort of took their bags and went home. I think Dynamite Kid was really embarrassed over this whole deal. I've never gotten his book or his shoot interview, but this is one of the reasons that I would, because this is a story that I've heard in a lot of RF video shoot interviews over the years. And, I'd really like to see his side of the story. I've heard the Rougeaus. I've heard, basically Bad News Brown. He had one of the best stories about this whole deal, went really into it. Next was the Dream Team getting eliminated by Paul Roma. Basically, the Hart Foundation was taken out by Jim Brunzell. And then just leaving Killer Bees and Young Stallions to get the wing. Now, when you build a Survivor Series team and you have your main event, you got to have your biggest players in there. They built an awesome team around Hulk Hogan, Don Morocco, Mr. Wonderful, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Ken Patera. All of these guys were the baby faces of the WWE. They were really believable as being out there as main eventers. Bam Bam Bigelow was basically the Rookie of the Year. One of the hot guys that was out there. Orndorff is sort of the guys that was sort of going babyface heel. His whole deal was basically that Rick Rude was brought into the Heenan family to sort of replace Orndorff. So Orndorff quit the Heenan family, that leaving him to go back babyface. Don Morocco, always one of these huge, big, beefy dudes. Basically, build a team around Andre the Giant. He brings in the biggest guys out there. King Kong Bundy, the one-man gang, Butch Reed, and then a guy that, should have been a main eventer in the WWF. He had a lot of spotlight around him in the Intercontinental title, but Rick Rude, you're getting to put him in a big spotlight. You get definitely big rubs for Bam Bam Bigelow and Rick Rude, making their rookie, pay-per-view performances for the WWF at the time. Very funny thing, you would think that this is going to come down to, honestly, Hulk Hogan winning this match and getting to do everything that he did, much like he won the Royal Rumble in '89 and in '90. But that's not the way things go. He gets to have his moment in the sun. But basically, King Kong Bundy and the one-man gang took Hogan on the outside, where he basically got counted out, leaving Bam Bam Bigelow to get back in the ring, and he had to go up against Andre the Giant, the one-man gang, and King Kong Bundy. And he was able to take out 2 of the 3, but when it came down to it, Andre the Giant hit the butterfly suplex on Bam Bam Bigelow, making him look like a huge star, being able to stand up against all these old guys. The second Andre the Giant got the pin. Hulk Hogan came down trying to challenge Andre the Giant to a one-on-one fight. Basically, Andre took out, Hogan's doing the pose down. Jesse Ventura is calling Hogan an egomaniac. He doesn't even get the win, but he comes out and he still celebrates, thinking he won the whole big deal. Hogan was a big star, and it sort of made you want to see the next match because he didn't win.